Hi viewers, welcome to our channel. In this video we will see about Orange Shirt Day. It is a Canadian statutory holiday and also known as a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
September 30th is Orange Shirt Day.
Orange Shirt Day was created as an observance in 2013 and it is designated to educate people and promote awareness in Canada about the Indian residential school system and the impact it has had in indigenous communities for over a century. An impact recognized as a cultural genocide and an impact that continues today. It is held annually on September 30th in Canadian communities where people are encouraged to wear an orange shirt. It was elevated to a statutory holiday by the Canadian government in 2021. Then what is the history of this Orange Shirt Day? Beginning in 1883, the government began funding Indian residential schools across Canada, which were run primarily by the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, but also included the United Church of Canada, the Methodist Church, and the Presbyterian Church. When the separation of children from their parents was resisted, the Government of Canada responded by making school attendance compulsory in 1894 and empowered the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to seize children from reserves and bring them to the residential schools. When parents came to take their children away from the schools, the pass system was created, banning Indigenous people from leaving their reserves without a pass from an Indian agent. Conditions at the schools were rough. Schools were underfunded and disease was rampant. Chief Medical Officer Mr. Peter Bryce wrote a report on the high mortality rate at the schools in 1906. It was as high as 69% at one school, but frequently ranging between 30 to 60%. After his forced retirement from the public service, he published the report in 1922, causing a public scandal. The brutal thing is many schools did not communicate the news of the death of the students to the students' families, burying the children in unmarked graves. In many schools, sexual abuse was common and students were forced to work to help raise money for the school. Students were beaten for speaking their indigenous languages. By the 1950s, the government began to relax restrictions on the First Nations of Canada and began to work towards shutting the schools down. In 1969, the government seized control of the residential schools from the churches, and by the 1980s, only a few schools remained open, with the last school closing in 1996. In 1986, the United Church of Canada apologized for its role in the residential school system. In 1992, the Anglican Church followed suit and apologized. Some Catholic organizations have apologized for their role in the residential school system, and in 2009, Pope Benedict XVI expressed sorrow for the experiences of the residential school survivors, but the Roman Catholic Church has not formally apologized for its role in the residential school system. In 2017, Prime Minister Mr. Justin asked the people to issue an apology over its role in the Indian residential school system. In 2008, Prime Minister Mr. Stephen Harper apologized on behalf of the Canadian government for the Indian residential school system and created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada to find out what happened at the Indian residential schools. The commission released its final report in 2015, which found that the Indian residential school system was an act of cultural genocide against the First Nations of Canada. Then, the Government of Canada recognized the cultural genocide against the First Nations of Canada at the Indian residential school system. In 2017, Canada's Indigenous Service Minister Jane Philpott and Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Minister Caroline Bennett encouraged people across Canada to participate in this commemorative and educational event. In 2018, the Department of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism announced its consideration for establishing a statutory holiday to honor the legacy of residential schools, whereby September 30 was one of the dates being considered. On September 29th, 2020, during the subsequent parliamentary session, Canada's Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault tabled a new bill proposing that Orange should become a national statutory holiday. The new holiday would be officially named as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on May 28, 2021, the day after 215 children's bodies were discovered in an unmarked mass grave on the grounds of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. All parties in the House of Commons agreed to fast track the bill, and it is passed in the House of Commons by unanimous consent. The bill passed the Senate unanimously 6 days later and received royal assent on June 3, 2021. The date was chosen because it is a time of year that children were taken from their homes to residential schools, and because it is an opportunity to set the stage for anti-racism and anti-bullying policies for the coming school year. On the day, communities come together in a spirit of reconciliation and hope because every child matters. Thank you friends, thank you for watching this video.